Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Public Safety and Justice Affairs Committee meeting, June 17th. Where does the time go? Roll call, please.
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly is absent at the moment. Ms. Conwell. Ms. Conwell is absent at the moment. Ms. Turner.
Present.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. You do not have a quorum. And also like the record to reflect that Councilman Schlepper is in attendance.
Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Schlepper. Ms. Simon's on her way. Mr. Kelly and Ms. Conwell had issues at home. So, anyhow, how about public comment? Do we have any?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first one is Peter Haas.
I've CASA Court-Appointed Special Advocates. I've been doing this volunteer work for about 9 years now, probably dealt with 15 or so kids. I got involved, I have a pastoral background. I'm an ordained rabbi. I was a hospital chaplain in the Army for many years. I'm still doing some hospital chaplaincy, but I wanted to get more out into the community, and this seemed like a vehicle to do that. I have to say I've been really in the trenches in terms of what's going on. I've been introduced to parts of Cleveland I didn't even know existed. I've met all kinds of families, all kinds of situations. I have seen kids, several of the ones that I've worked with, who have really started off in very bad places for all sorts of reasons and have moved through the system and moved out and been successful. And I think in many ways that we as CASA volunteers, not lawyers, not social workers, but just dealing with the kids and being advocates for the kids, really gives them a chance to have their voice heard in a way that they can trust, and that brings that into the court system. And I think we've, at least my experience and those of my colleagues, that we've made some significant differences in a lot of children in Cuyahoga County that otherwise would probably end up in real trouble in other kinds of ways. So I found this also a privilege to be able to do this, and would very much like to see this program continue and even expand. So thank you for the time.
Next is Dr. Debbie London.
Good afternoon. I'm Debbie London. I've been a CASA for a little over 3 years now, and I'm also a board member. Geauga County, Lorain County, Summit County are all have CASA programs completely county funded. But we in Cuyahoga County have a lot more cases, a lot more kiddos in foster care. So I want to just speak to this personally. My case that just finished, I had 2 kids. It was clear neglect, clear abuse situation. And because I was able to help out with their case, I found out a lot more details. Everything goes a lot deeper when you've got overworked social workers, overworked GALs. I'm a volunteer. I knew what I was getting into. Well, I didn't really know what I was getting into, but the more I dug, the more I found out, and the more helpful it was to those kids. The outcome was that these kids stayed with a respite foster care family for a week during the summer. That worked out so well that respite family care ended up adopting these 2 kids. Those are 2 fewer kids who were 9 and 12, not in the system. They're not going to be a drain on the system. And what I'd like to do now is just illustrate for you what that means in dollars. So it costs approximately $2,400 to fund 1 CASA. It costs approximately $70,000 to fund 1 kid in care for a year. So that's a savings of $68,000 one-to-one. But most of us, or many of us, CASAs, have more than 1 kid. For example, I had 2, so I saved 2 kids. Let me break that down further. If you fund 16 CASAs, that's approximately $40,000 from the county budget. If you have 16 CASAs, that's going to be a minimum of 16 kids that they can help. That's $1 million you're up savings. That's $1 million versus $40,000. If you fund CASA, That's how much the county's going to be saving per kid. Thank you.
Is that all you have, ma'am? You can, if you want.
Just that 40,000 compared to $1 million a year is a huge savings. It would be ridiculous not to do that. And with all due respect, I just think Cuyahoga County has so many kids in need, and it is proven time and time again. You can look at so many studies. I could stand here all day and tell you studies that show the positive outcomes, the less drain on the system, the kids that are helped, and I just finished witnessing it with 2 kids, and really, for us, it's really gratifying and meaningful. To those kids, we just changed their life. And might it have happened without me? That's really hard to say. But with me as a volunteer, with the other people on the team, the GAL, the lawyers, the caseworkers, we were able to make it happen. So it seems like a no-brainer because the things that are affected, gun violence will go down, crime will go down, truancy will go down. All those things will be improved by just funding CASA again. So thank you.
Thank you.
No one else is signed in.
Miss, we're going to hold the minute. We'll hold the minutes till next time. We have no matters referred to committee, but we do have a presentation we've been looking forward to for quite some time, and it's the final report and recommendations from Juvenile Court Advisory Subcommittee. It was put together last year to help advise us and the court on potential avenues to take with juveniles caught up in our system, and most importantly, those that may not be caught up in the system yet. So we'll see where the committee went. We were given the reports. I've read the reports and the recommendations. So what I'll do is, Judge, are you going to lead the parade? I'd like to welcome everybody. This is the Honorable Ronald Adrian, a well-known gentleman in the legal community of Cleveland. Judge, I was so happy that you offered your expertise, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Let me start, before I even get going at all, by saying thank you for all of the support that we received from the staff of Cuyahoga County to make this really happen, and to say very publicly that without the efforts of Mr. Joseph Nani, Ms. Laura Black, Ms. Janine Carter, that none of this would ever have taken place. They were phenomenal, and I hope that the records reflect the magnitude of what they did as it relates to what we were able to do. So I want to start that before I say anything else.
Well, thank you, Judge, and I know we appreciate it. They always say you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, and I think we've done an exemplary job of that.
Yeah, as I told Mr. Nani when I came in today, it's an old saying that says, teamwork makes the dream work, and we reflect that.
We appreciate it, and we also give our thanks to our staff. We couldn't do what we do without them, and that's a fact.
Very good. Good afternoon to all of the members of the committee. On behalf of the Juvenile Court Advisory Subcommittee, I'd like to express our sincere gratitude for the opportunity to serve. The time that we spent in this endeavor was an enlightening learning experience for all of us. So on behalf of myself, my co-chair, Jennifer Young, Ms. Bridget Gibbons, Mr. Marvin Cross, the Honorable Robert McClellan, we feel particularly blessed to have been given the opportunity to undertake this on behalf of the children and on behalf of all of the residents of Cuyahoga County. The product that we presented to you reflects our best efforts. We aim to provide information with brevity, offer guidance without prescribing actions, and to balance practicality with creativity. We also aim to balance the physical constraints that we know are in place in the county with the need to support justice-involved youth and their families. It is in the best interest of the entire population of Cuyahoga County, their safety and well-being, to invest in the group, that is to say the children and their families, while implementing identified best practices within budgetary constraints. We determined that many of the best practices that we were able to identify do not require financial commitments, but rather leadership engagement from the body that constituted us, that is to say, your organization and the larger council. For example, our findings highlighted, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Our findings highlighted a false narrative that unfairly portrays youth as the primary source of criminal activity in this county. That is not the case. So, council's leadership in a robust community outreach effort to counteract this narrative could be pivotal in changing the way children, and particularly justice-involved children, are viewed by the general population. I think that that would make all the difference in the world, especially if there were combined initiatives to unite the community in addressing these issues effectively. Organizing regular multidisciplinary community forums, collaborating with existing groups, and initiating a high-profile social media public relations campaign are just 3 effective strategies that we've identified and put forward for you to consider in tackling the problems that face you. You heard today from the folks from CASA. We've seen where at the national level they've been decimated. What they are able to do and the fiscal impact that that can make on the bottom line here in Cuyahoga County suggests that what you've heard here is really something that ought to be undertaken very quite seriously when it comes to funding. Again, we recognize that funding is going to be an issue because you have so many priorities. There are so many needs. There are so many losses that we're taking at the local level because of what's happening nationally. But this is one I think ought to be moved up in the priority list. The members of my committee are here, with the exception of Judge McClellan, who had other priorities that took him away from us today. But those of us who are here are more than willing and are fully prepared to answer any remaining questions that you may have had about the report, our findings, our recommendations, and our suggestions, and so we stand ready to do that.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Were there any concerns with the report? Not hearing any. I know how heavy a lift this was, and I really appreciate it. I think the important thing now is this is really just step 1 of the process, if indeed there is a process, because we're kind of making this up as we go along, because this has really never been done before. without the cooperation of the court, without the cooperation of the committee, and without the cooperation of the county, ultimately, who's going to have to fund whatever the court's needs are identified as being, that's when we step in. So I think the next step would be to meet with the court after they digest the committee's report. I don't know if you've talked to the court yet as to whether or not you're going to go over there and talk with them, or just was the report delivered, I would imagine.
Our primary responsibility was to you. If the court wishes to have us come and sit down and go over what we came up with them, I'm sure that all the members of the committee are more than willing to undertake that.
Right. And I kept, the thing that we were running into, and actually Mr. Schlepper and myself were talking before we started, is I find it interesting that in the county we have all kinds of crossover. We have different groups crossing over doing the same thing, and we always wonder, can we somehow collectively put them together? But unfortunately, you run into kingdoms being built, and people don't like to cross over their funds with others to do the same thing. I don't think we find that too much with the juvenile court, and I know it exists everywhere, so I'm sure it happens there. But when it comes to what the needs seem to be, I think the court has identified, and what really kind of grabbed me was the mentoring system. Could you go a little bit into what your thoughts were on expanding mentoring?
Well, let me just kind of carry you through just a few things.
Okay.
The first was that the report is constructed in a specific kind of way. There is really method to our madness. We decided that the way that you could get the most impactful outcomes is to front-end load what you do. That is, the more people that we can actually keep out of the system,
Right.
the better it'll be for all of us overall. And then as we work forward, that the least or lightest touches throughout the process are the ones that should be next funded. So things having to do with mentoring and diversion and things of that nature are the things that we would say are the next most important after you get to the point where you've exhausted your possibilities for prevention. Interventions, almost by definition, means that somehow or another we've missed an opportunity. So if you look at the report and in that way, that it goes from a place where we can put the best and the most resources on the front end, and then work our way through towards the end, which is the deep end. And the deep end, of course, is people who have to be incarcerated because they pose such a threat to the community. You can see how we built this report in order to try to accomplish that goal.
Because I think, there does come a time where you do have some kids that, unfortunately, you just know they're not going to make it. They're just not going to make it. And you want to do the best you can with what you have. But my thought initially is grabbing those kids that get a taste of juvenile for some odd reason, and usually something stupid, and then grab that kid figuratively and try and figure out how we can, because these kids they're just wandering, they're lost. And if we can buffer up whatever is there right now, I think that's the most impactful. And I think you're right, starting at the beginning, front load it, and then move on from there.
What people need to understand really fully, and this is one of the things that really kind of, gripped me when the statistics were presented to me, is that probably close to 80% of the kids who have justice system involvement have a touch and are never seen by the system again. That is, 80% of them are successful. So you have a very small core of really hard cases that get all the headlines and actually form the perspective of people as it relates to youth violence and youth crime, but they are not representative. The juvenile court has almost or something in the range of 100 separate programs currently that they can employ in order to fine tune and be creative in how they put people together and who goes into what. And they do a great job. And that was one of the things that came up during the course of our examination of what is currently in place, that the court is actually doing a great job with the resources that it has now. And with more resources, it would be able to do more. Even the kids who are at the deep end, the ones that are considered by most folks to be throwaway, are not necessarily all throwaway. And that was another surprise that we were able to learn. You know, there's brain science that suggests that for individual human beings, that their frontal cortex doesn't fully develop until they reach their late teens or early 20s. And so a lot of these kids who are getting into really serious trouble are still working with a brain that's not really completely done. And so there are interventions that can be done even with those kids that can turn them around. We just need to identify who fits into what category and then make sure that the interventions that we craft are the appropriate interventions for each individual. And again, from what I can gather, the juvenile court, based upon the information that we were given, is doing a really good job with that, but they need some more resources in order to actually get it done. One of the things that I think that we identified that they really need a lot more of is probation officers. And probation officers in 2025 are not doing the same job that probation officers were doing when I started practicing law in 1973. They are much more attuned to all of these tools and these interventions that are able to turn kids around. But they're carrying such heavy caseloads now that they can't give individual kids the time and the attention that they really need in order to address their specific needs in the way that they need to be. And yet and still, 80% or more of the kids that come into the juvenile system are coming out with a good outcome.
And I know the court shares that thought with you. They've expressed that to me. And this is, we're at this moment in time, I think, for Cuyahoga County and what we're going to do. Are we going to stand up and, find those funds and fund this properly, or aren't we? And I think we're here today to tell you that your time was not wasted and that we're going to do the best that we can with the court and working back with you, because I'm sure you're going to be consulted as we move forward as to how to best implement what the court needs and how they need it and when they need it. And I'm assuming that's going to be in October when we start looking at the budget again. Are there any other questions? Well, to your committee and from my committee, I thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. I know it wasn't always easy. You've identified our staff as wonderful as they are, and I appreciate that again. We will be in touch with you as we move forward. This is not going to be something that's going to be put up on a shelf and forgotten. And I think now that the world knows that this work has been done and the recommendations are now in the record, that we have a job to do on this side of this dais, as the court has their job to do, and we're going to work as diligently as we can. I can promise you that.
I appreciate it. One last personal note that I just want to extend to you, just as I did to Mr. Nani. I told him that he did a wonderful job signing people to us to help us get this work done. I want to tell you and the committee that you guys did a wonderful job of putting together the right team to do the work.
I appreciate that. And I knew this wasn't going to be easy. and I knew there would be some tough times, but we've got the right people here. I learned that back in my days with the court, that it truly is. If you don't surround yourself with good people, you're just not going to get the job done. So I'm grateful to them, and daily I'm grateful to them. And I'm eternally grateful to you and the committee for doing what you did. And now the work begins. Now the heavy lifting begins, and now that's on us, and let it be so.
We stand ready to help.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before you all go, we have proclamations we'd like to give you, so if you all step forward, I'd like to hand these out.
So in the meantime, when the chair's presenting, I want to thank him, Councilman Gallagher, for moving forward with the request of Councilwoman Stevens way back when. So thank you for following up with that, and the team.
Oh, on this side?
Through the chair, I just wanted to make a comment and
Yes, ma'am.
also just echo all of your sentiments and thank each of you and all the folks that you thank in your report, because I know you used your education, you used all the research and data that you could find, and more importantly, I know you brought your hearts to this assignment. So thank you for seeing our children, our young people, and we're just gonna roll our sleeves up and get it done. And thank you for your time, because it was truly a labor of love. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, miscellaneous business?
Excuse me,
Hearing
Mr.
none,
Chair.
thank you.
Mr. Chair. oh,
Yes,
Did you want to approve the minutes? You want to?
we'll do them next time. It's official.